Well, I've been talking with Cat Jenkins about her addictions, and I said, if you don't mind staying around, doing one more, because there's going to be people watching this who are fascinated with your story, but also probably thinking, am I drinking too much? Is that extra drink, did I need it?
Tell you the number of times that I Googled, have you got a problem with drink?
Yeah.
I think if once doing that, you kind of know then, don't you?
Some advice, and you're talking, you make it quite clear, this is just you giving advice, you're not whatever thing, but surely I think first hand's got to be an interesting way to come to this. How much is too much?
It's not the volume, it's the misery it creates, I think, or and the motivation behind it. That for me. So for me, I've had friends who drink very little. I remember one friend who drank maybe half a bottle of wine a day, and we kind of used to laugh at her in the group I was in at the time and say, you're a lightweight, but not really laugh at her, because it was the fact that she couldn't not, and that she felt that need, that overwhelming urge.
So if you have to have it every day, or?
I don't think it's even every day. So for me, there was a time when my drinking was episodic, binges, but always catastrophic. Once I started, I couldn't stop. I would carry on until it was all gone, or I was unconscious, whichever came first. So different people have different patterns. Some people it might be an amount every day. For some people it might be lots of no drinking and then catastrophic binge drinking. I guess for me the motivations were about trying to change the way I felt. Take away a feeling or not feel, not be, and also my inability to control it once I started. So once I'd had that first drink, that's it, till it's all gone, and the irrationality as well. So there was a point where I should have known as clear as day that I couldn't just have one drink. That if I had one, I would carry on. But my head would tell me, or my addiction would tell me, it'll be different this time.
Did you get a propensity to alcohol, do you think? I mean, it just wasn't hitting you as much as, when people drink very occasionally, they get quite woozy after a glass, whereas, I mean, I'm probably a drinker in the sense of Friday night, and people say, oh, you've got a propensity to it, you don't seem to be affected by it at all.
Right. I don't think I know the answer to that. There were times when I would have drunk a lot and not show much for it, but I'd have been well over any limits.
Yes.
And there were times when I was very obviously impaired, and everyone in the world could tell apart from me. So I'm not sure. I think somewhere in one side of my family there might have been someone with problems, but I have no idea whether it's genetic or not.
But those people going, we'll call this on the Friday bizarrely, people going tonight after work, they go for their drink, don't they?
Yeah.
And
some people can misuse it, overuse it, but not be addicted, I think. So some people can lean on certain substances or alcohol while they're going through a time of crisis or while they're having a lot of fun. They could do things that are very inadvisable, but I'd suggest they're maybe not addicted. They sort of pass through that time and come out without too much trouble. They get away with it. And then there are other people for whom you can't get out of it without help.
Seeking help, I mean, just again from your experience, what worked for you? You say you haven't done AA?
I did.
Oh, you did?
I did do AA for a number of years, and for me that wasn't the right home, but I know I have a lot of friends in AA, and for the people it works for, it works terrifically, and hats off to them. And I think it's a terrific organisation that people should try and find out what works for them.
Obviously, the first thing is you need to think you need help, of course, because you've got to walk through that door, haven't you?
Yeah.
Isn't that the hardest thing?
It is, and I'm sure lots of people rock up at lots of different kinds of recovery groups because they've been sent, or because they want to appease the court, or they want to look as though they're doing everything, but they're not actually ready in their minds. I've had conversations with friends and said, do you want to come along with me to a group? And they've said, I'm actually not ready yet, and I get that. I do get that. Sometimes things haven't got quite bad enough. They had to get really bad for me. I had to plumb the depths, hit a rock bottom, and make it even rockier before something in me wanted to stop for a long time, but I couldn't make that leap to, was it maybe being humble enough to just really be humble enough and start from scratch and build myself from the bottom up.
What worked for you then?
Rehab and a group that I go to now called Smart Recovery.
Which you also take some.
So I'm just a newly fledging facilitator. So I'm no expert on Smart, and I'm not purporting to speak to them, but I'm massively grateful to them, because I find that approach absolutely works.
Can you give us an overview of how it works?
So it's group work, and it involves people sharing honestly about what's going on for them, but also it's quite forward-looking. So they have a lot of tools. They call them tools that help you address urges, keep your motivation going, challenge unhelpful thinking, the kind that says, go on, you can just have one, it'll be all right. And live your life in balance as well. So for people that can perhaps relapse because they get overwhelmed, or they're too down on themselves, or boredom's a trigger, it helps also frame your life, give yourself some structure so that you don't suffer that additional risk of relapse. So I find those tools really constructive, and I get masses out of what whoever's running the group is doing, but I also get masses out of my friends and colleagues who go to it.
Did you have to walk through a door though for this?
Yeah.
You did? It
Oh man.
Oh, okay.
Hats off to whoever does that. And actually, sometimes the person who helps me if I'm having a bit of a tough day is the newest person in the room, because I can look at them and think, oh, I was there where you were a couple of years ago, and I know how you're feeling, and thank you for reminding me, because I can have all that misery back just like that.
Okay.
Just by giving in.
This group, how do you get hold of them?
So a charity called Motivate on the Isle of Man, and again, I don't speak for Motivate, but they're who helped me find my way to the Smart Group. They set up the first ones on the Isle of Man, and they run them a couple of times a week in Central Douglas, and there's also one that runs up at DAT as well, and they're great.
We're talking about alcoholism here, which is, of course, a legal substance, and therefore that's why I want to stay with it. Do you think there is answers like the Scottish way, making it more expensive? Would that have stopped you? Shorter pub opening hours?
Yeah, I have to say that some of what I've read indicates that there's research that minimum unit pricing does help to cut the harms. I know there are lots of arguments around how that penalises non-abusive drinkers, and that's not fair. But for me, it's been bemusing, and maybe I speak as someone who has that not fear, but that wariness around alcohol. The damage that it does is hugely underreported. I think the drinks industry has huge and powerful lobbying, and obviously doesn't much want to have minimum unit pricing on drinking. But I think if we discovered it today and took full account of the harms that it does, not just to an individual, but to their family, to society, costs to the court, costs to the NHS, I don't think we'd be making it as cheap and cheerful and readily available as it is.
And for you to go out to a grocery shop to buy some food, and they're not only cigarettes for those people, but there's the alcohol that sits there.
Yeah.
Is that tricky because it's so readily available?
It's not at the moment for me. There was a time when there was, but the further your last drink is behind you, the less those urges can be. That said, I think it's a huge risk for people that are struggling, and maybe if account was taken of that there are people, if people do think of it as a disease, would you really put something that was a huge risk factor in that disease so cheaply and readily available? Probably not. Because
some of it, they say the cider's cheaper than the bottled water or something.
They say that, don't they? I don't know if that's true, but so on the one hand, I don't want to deny people who can use alcohol happily. I don't want to deny them that. There are a few things more fun in life than sitting around with your mates, talking rubbish and having a few drinks.
And you'll never have another drink in your life, or unless you fall off the wagon, of course.
For me,
you can never trust yourself.
It's not a risk worth taking. So it might be all right, but my experience tells me that it wouldn't. And why would I take that risk? It's only one thing I can't do. There are a million other things that I can do.
Health-wise, finally, you look fine. You know, the stereotypical alcoholic is all ravaged, and I mean, how's your liver, by the way? Do
you know what? It's absolutely
it
fine. Yeah. So
isn't that amazing? Because everyone
it
says
goes
about
to
the
show
liver.
there's no justice.
Yeah, but that's just the way it is, isn't it?
I'm very fortunate, and I have, and not everybody is so fortunate. Of the friends that I came through Littledale with, and Littledale has a really good recovery rate compared to rehabs across the country. 4 have died.
Right.
So some because they've, all of those 4 because they've had relapses, and my heart breaks for them and for their families. There is no judgment in that. It's incredibly difficult. If it wasn't incredibly difficult, there wouldn't be the problem that there is.
Finally, if people want to talk to you, can they find you out there somewhere, or Facebook
for sure,
or whatever?
yeah. But
are you happy to
I
chat?
absolutely am.
Right.
As I say, I am no expert in anything other than my own experience. And I have immense gratitude for the fact that we have a system that enabled me to get to rehab. I couldn't have afforded it myself. And that we have groups like SMART. So I can talk about what my experience was, and that's it really.
Well, thanks for doing the interviews. How are you feeling after this?
Because
this must be quite traumatic, bringing it up and talking to everyone like this.
It's interesting. It does bring up some anxious feelings. I'll look after myself. I'll go and hang out with some recovery buddies later today. I'm lucky in that I know now how to do these things, how to look after myself. Maybe ordinary people, civilians, know how to do this stuff automatically. I had to learn it.
I think we're all just one step away from that too many drinks. Most people, you just don't know, and that's the whole point. When you cross that point.
Yeah, I don't know. I know that from a young age I drank fast, and so I was probably setting myself up for a problem right from the get-go. But everybody has different paths to get there. But thank you, God, I'm alive to tell the tale.